Some assembly required is about matters of the heart and the head and that mushy space in between them. Now, if you're anything like me, and I think that you are, you may have healthy debates with friends about how, for example, the schooling system has developed our way of thinking, programmed us to believe that a holiday is when you slow down, groomed us even into believing that we don't deserve a physical or a mental break unless our calendar is clear, our email inbox is empty, and our to do list is all wrapped up. Now, these debates often arrive at the conclusion that while elements of this might be true, ultimately we have less and less capacity. So, how then do we make more space? And this is where Ronen Aires comes into the building. Welcome to Some Assembly Required, Ronen.
Thanks, Sean.
I'm really excited for this conversation because I know that you've worked in so many spaces as an entrepreneur, as a youth specialist, as a public speaker, as an author. And from what I can tell, you're a general lover of life. But only once you've got a cup of coffee in your system. Does that really kickstart things for you, Ronen?
Yeah, so that's been my go-to for years. But as life has continued, what I've learned is to actually delay gratification. So coffee is actually the most pervasive drug in the world. And really what my morning routine used to consist of is, to know something about me is I generally wake up on the wrong side of the bed every day.
Oh, no.
So I don't know what happens to me during the night. I monitor my sleep. I get the right quantity and quality of sleep, but then I never wake up ready for the day. So my usual used to be literally like leopard crawling to the coffee machine in the coffee and getting that first cup, and then it would be a process of waking up. And from what I've learned just around health and longevity is actually to delay that gratification. And what I do is I mimic that same mechanism of something warm going down my gullet. And I start with warm water and lemon just to get the system firing up in a gentle way. And then I go stand outside barefoot on the grass and I get 10 minutes of sunlight. And that, one of my teachers, Dr. Andrew Huberman, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, is a very big proponent of that routine. And that sets off a whole cascade of reactions in your body, from dopamine release to serotonin, lifts your mood and gets a lot of processes going just by doing that. And by being barefoot on the grass, you're also grounding yourself. And so you're going into the day with much less anxiety and stress. And then I've added other aspects to my morning routine, which I call the stack, which we can talk about. And only then do I decide around coffee. So coffee is only coming into the equation half an hour later, unless I'm exercising. If I'm exercising, then it's a quick coffee on the go, and then I go exercise.
You know, as I listen to you talk, you've mentioned so many things that I want to delve into already. But at the top of that, listing the fact that you work as an entrepreneur, that you are a public speaker, that you've developed your reading materials for others to be able to learn from as an author. You're already a very busy individual. Your schedule is chock-a-block. People are looking for you. People have got your time, demanding of your time. And I think that speaks to so many of us that are trying to create a life for ourselves. And it's not surprising then that we are leopard crawling to that coffee machine, because in that training, that programming, that thinking of this is how I get through my day. If I can just get that caffeine to hit my lips, then my day can start. And it's sort of, from what I'm listening to you say now, especially with Andrew Huberman and his, I forget now if he calls it the yellow light of the day or the blue light of the day, but that first early morning light, and looking not directly at the sun, but in that direction, and how that really does sort of kickstart your day. I find myself doing my level best not to look at my cell phone when I wake up in the morning, not to check Instagram or emails. And it's such a difficult thing to really do. And from what I can understand now, Ronan, for the first time in years of doing business, and I'm sure you've learned over the years, but you found a way to keep adding capacity to your grid. And if somebody from ESCOM would be listening to this would also be really good. What does adding capacity to your already overloaded schedule actually mean? What does that look like?
So let's unpack the problem first. So one of the things that I fundamentally believe in, and you're one of them, as entrepreneurs and leaders, I think we have a level of psychosis. I
Okay, keep
think
talking. I'm listening, but
you know that manual that psychologists and psychiatrists refer to, the DSM-4. You
yes.
know, I think they should have chronic entrepreneur syndrome listed as one of them. Whether you can take medication for that is up for debate, but the very nature of how we're put together and how our minds work is we're out there, we're constantly, our minds are busy. We value busy as a society. So if you and I had to check in with each other and we had coffee this morning and you say, how are things going? Generally a person would say, I'm so busy. And that's almost like a subconscious request for a little participation medal in the world, the extent to which you're busy. And so busy is this kind of currency that is kind of thrown around and, oh, you're also busy. Well, let me tell you how busy I am, and
Yeah.
this notion of busyness from a neurological perspective is not great on our system. So what you have is we're overloading our brains. It's good to be on a mission. It's good to have purpose and it's good to be busy, but too busy. What we end up doing is we're overloading our prefrontal cortex with stress and cortisol. And really what that does is it shuts down our logic. It shuts down our ability to make sound decisions. And really in this whole quest to be busy and take you on a million things, really what we do is we sacrifice ourselves. And so after a good night's rest, which is our daily reset, where our bodies and minds recover and process whatever happened the day before. And by the way, like as a little performance hack, if you only had to work on one thing, if you wanted to really crush today and you only wanted to work on one thing, that one thing is sleep.
Hmm.
So a good quality night's sleep resets you and gets your body and brain ready for the next day. But in order to get a good night's sleep, you have to have a whole bunch of routines to slow that busy brain down. And
Hmm.
so when I speak to a lot of people and I say, when you wake up and once you look at your phone and once you open that first app to check messages, notifications, etc., you've now given yourself away. You now no longer own your day. Your day owns you. And so part of my routine has been to, again, work on that almost impossible. It's almost like the claws are reaching out. As soon
Yeah.
as you can get like at least one eye open, your hands, if not consciously, subconsciously reaching for your phone. And the biggest battle for me in the morning is taking my phone, not opening one of the apps, getting out of bed, taking my headphones, walking to another room and going to do a breathwork session.
Hmm.
And so for me, if you can own your first 60 minutes, and for some people with young kids, obviously 60 minutes is a long time. And you could either say, wake up earlier, which is also often hard if you want that good night's sleep, or you could do it in parts. But if you speak about it in concept, if you can own that first 60 minutes and fill it up with things that are good for you, so good for your body, good for your mind, good for that space between your mind and your heart, and that's where probably gratitude and all the things you need to do to go out into the world positively charged so that the world doesn't knock you off your seat and
Hmm.
you can go out and do great things.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you more. I have definitely found that the days that I start with exactly that, sort of giving over control to my phone, to the demands of my day, if I start my day like that, I feel everything feels fractured, displaced, struggle to focus. It's a really difficult thing to do for the rest of the day to maintain and get any work done. It's getting done, but I don't feel as in control compared to the days where it might not be 60 minutes, but if I can delay that first cup of coffee for myself, which is not too difficult, but if I can not open my phone, if I can just look at the time and then put the phone down again, I feel more creative those days. I feel more in flow on those days. I feel far more myself those days. And during my time on radio, it's going to be a long way around, but we would borrow sort of these social media concepts that we could repeat week in and week out. So things like Meat Free Monday, we would do every Monday, or Woman Crush Wednesdays, or Throwback Thursdays. And, these things are relatively popular. And Tuesday was an interesting one because my team couldn't agree. The girls wanted it to be Shoes Day, as in the things that you put on your feet to protect them. And I liked the idea of Tuesday because it was something that we could, kind of like a mindset, like to choose it. And it never really took off. Well, the Tuesday things did, but Tuesday didn't. You, Ronan, however, have taken that a whole step further, and you're now inviting us all to get part of this social experiment that is a Chooseday experiment. I'd really like for you to unpack the point of it before we get to why you even went there.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I can do it before the why, but
Okay, do the why first. Do the why first.
we've yeah, we've already alluded to the problem. The problem is we're just so busy. And if you think of the accelerator and the brake, we spend most of our day with our foot flat on the accelerator. We don't, we don't, we over index the accelerator and we don't pay enough attention to the brakes.
Hmm.
And so if you look at us as a society, we're so busy and our nervous systems are absolutely frazzled. And so coming out of a post-pandemic era, if you think about when you speak to people, not only do they say, am I busy? There's now the addition of I'm super stressed, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed. And and really that's the state, our collective state that we're operating in, which is neither good for our physical or our mental well-being, right?
Hmm.
And so it came to the end of last year, and I have no idea how you were feeling at the end of 2022, but I was like roadkill.
Hmm.
And and I remember sitting on holiday, and it took me quite a few days just to defrag and actually come back to myself. And I kept on thinking, what needs to change? The nature of my own personality is I'm a hard charger. So I I go through periods where I'm doing so many things, and then I retreat or hibernate. But if I don't take corrective action soon enough, I burn out and frazzle and or sizzle. And so at the end of last year, I knew some things had to change. And I looked at even the whole notion of how, as a society, we run our lives. Most of us push ourselves the whole week. Then it's
Hmm.
thank God it's Friday. Then if you have kids or families or you've got things going on the weekends are often still busy, and then we're back at it again, and then suddenly we're in August and we're almost semi comatose. By October, we're just waiting for December. By November, we're actually not even conscious, and we literally kind of um, either implode or float away into December, where we get back to feeling like ourselves. We feel creative. We get the inspiration back if we're taking time off, that is.
Hmm.
And then we make all these promises to ourselves. We we make all these promises. Our next year is going to be different. We think of all these goals, and we make all these resolutions. And guess what? We have a great New Year's Eve. We turn the corner, we recover. And in January, we come back and we believe that it's all going to be different. Right?
Yep.
So what happens by February? By February, life's already got in the way. By March, you don't even remember those resolutions. Then you're back on the same treadmill with the same one-way traffic, heading back to that December where you're going to tell yourself the same lies. And so I decided this December to actually take an honest look at me, at my lifestyle, at what I do, and I thought, let me try something, because at the root of all of this, what I felt was I was out of control. So there was not enough space for me. I was oversubscribed, and I felt that under this kind of duress and stress, that I felt more obligated to other people's needs than the needs of myself. And so I know when you take those deep breaths in that something's resonating. So when I go about my week, and on a Sunday night I review what's coming, and when I look at my calendar, and there's absolutely no space, and that's before the bell goes off on a Monday. And obviously there's going to be urgencies and unknowns and all things that creep up during the week. And I look at my week, and as a business leader, whether as a coach or a speaker, or whichever facet of my life, as a husband, father, to show up in all those various departments or categories. And I look at it and I see what's already waiting for me, and nothing excites me. It's like this is filled with all the have-tos, the obligations, the shoulds. There's nothing there that's inspiring me. There's nothing there that is saying, like, I can't wait for tomorrow. And so I looked at it and I said, you know what? Let's be honest. Mondays are the toughest days because the world suddenly switches on and demands the most from you. So I decided, let Monday be, just accept it, and just do as much as you can to smash it. Just don't fight it. Don't resist it. Then the nature of our business is we work in the office Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And in 2022, I found myself on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I used to go into the office just to have the peace of mind and quiet, but I used to sit there and stress about what everyone else is doing. Was it actually Side Hustle Tuesday, or was it, what was everyone else doing? And I had what I would say is an extraordinary chronic amount of suffering. Suffering around worry about what others were doing, let alone the obligations that I had to do. So I decided to take Tuesday because the world somehow needs less from you on a Tuesday. It's weird. Monday is crazy day. Tuesday somehow is different. And so I decided, well, let me do this secret experiment. I'm not going to tell anyone about it. Literally, didn't even tell my wife. I said, I'm going to start this experiment with myself. And the approach was, I'm going to clean slate the day. I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not going to accept any meetings. And I'm going to start with a blank slate and say, what do I need? What will serve my highest interest? And what would be great for the business and everything else that I do? And I'm going to do that on a Tuesday. So I renamed Tuesday to Chooseday. And the whole aim of it was a social experiment of how could I get out of, I just want to survive the day, to I'm actually looking forward to this day, because this day is filled with things that are both good for me and my ecosystem. And could I get control back? And when I say control, could I get agency back? Could I feel like myself? Could I tap into less anxiety, stress, joy, and could I switch things from urgent to important?
Mm.
And for me, and it's just the nature of me, I experience flow when I'm not constrained and when I can go at a pace that is friendly to me. Frenetic almost um, is a flow disruptor for me. If I can go at a pace without necessarily knowing what the next thing is, that's when magic occurs for me. So when I
Yeah.
can kind of wander through my day at my own pace, there's just so many magical, unintended consequences that happen. Chance meetings, inspiration, and just cool stuff that just wouldn't happen if it was an ordinary day.
Yeah. I am loving the fact that you've managed to design this intentionally. And I can say what I really struggled with, especially at the end of last year. I left the I left the job. I came into 2023, unattached to any form of corporate or any promises of employment, and it was almost like a gift from my wife, who'd said, we can't both be frazzling and sizzling throughout. One of us needs to, be a little bit stronger than the other. Sorry, and
We have the same rule, by the way. My wife and I have this rule that only one of us can be off
yeah,
at any
we've got
given time.
yeah, and you know what the hardest part for me was, despite having been given permission by somebody else to lay the tools down and to give myself a bit of a break. When you've been going for 15, 20 odd years in a media industry and you're going from one thing to the next, it was very difficult to slow down. But she'd given me permission to stop doing things and to just enjoy the sunshine and enjoy the grass under your feet and to enjoy that cup of coffee. I found it really hard to do that. And I was given permission by somebody else to do it. How then would you say we go about developing a method that allows for ourselves to give ourselves the permission to take a day in the week where we do the things that actually bring us joy? Because that's what you're saying here. It's not necessarily saying, only work X number of hours a week. You're really saying, let me fill my week with things that are going to spark up my creativity again, that allow for me to feel inspired. Um, Giving myself permission to do that is sometimes, I want to say, the hardest part.
You're absolutely right. I mean, how many times, and this would be a question to the listeners and the viewers too. So how many times do you have maybe that someone cancels a meeting and you suddenly have an hour and a half that suddenly opened up? What do you do at that time? You know, and that often will speak to that psychosis that I spoke about.
Yeah.
Instead of filling it with something that you absolutely love and will bring you joy, we either frenetically hop back into our inbox or we are desperately trying to fill up that time because, God forbid, we're not busy.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're not busy, we're not doing. If we're not doing, then we're not adding value. If we're not adding value, who am I? Um, and, am I falling behind the curve? And you mentioned the media business and, coming from a similar industry, it, I find the root cause of being even in a service business, there's a root cause that kind of attracts a certain kind of individual. If you're in the service business, you're there to serve and to please, but often at the expense of yourself. And you find
Mm.
yourself with unreasonable clients that absolutely demand the world from you. And I think the root cause there is often around a level of self-love that is unhealthy.
Mm.
And so really what the approach here is to say, you know what, if you're someone, and I'll talk about me, I call myself a control freak in recovery.
Okay.
And this is an opportunity. So whether you take it as a day, so I'm not saying you shouldn't do a 4-day work week. This is certainly not a 4-day work week. This is the 4+1 work week. This is saying it's still part of your week. You're still productive, but you're coming from a different angle. So ordinarily, people like us are a type A. And this is like, for me, switching from type A to type B, BE. So, so it's more like saying, how do I do things in a different way to get different results? So often when we're feeling stuck or we're feeling burnt out, what our brains need to almost revive is to change things up. You've got to change your routine. So even if you have a great daily routine where you run 5 to 10 kilometers a day, at some stage there's diminishing returns and your brain almost predicts it.
Mm.
So, you can get into a routine where you get, like I said, either diminishing returns or you're just not getting the same delivery and the same feeling. And so one of the traps of our busy lives is we get so stuck in the kitchen and things are so super stressful and overwhelming that it actually shuts off all the good stuff. So you get locked in the lower layers of stress, anxiety, and if that happens the whole year, then you run the risk of burnout.
Mm.
There's also depression, chronic anxiety. Things just get worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so why wait for that 3 week holiday where you get that mini reset and you think everything's fine, and then you go back onto the same mill and carry on the same way? It's like Einstein's famous quote around doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Mm.
And so the best thing to do is to incorporate, for me, think of it as a microdose of December every week. And
Yes.
it's it's really like saying, you know what, I look at the things that bring you joy, look at the things that are really important to you and your business that you're just not getting the time to do, and giving yourself the permission to do it in a way that makes you feel great. So you don't even have to start with a day. You can start with an hour, then 2 hours, then 3 hours. And guess what? I decided to do it as an experiment. And the very nature of an experiment is you don't know the outcome. And the thing is, it worked. It worked from the first time. And then I was in disbelief and I thought maybe that's, a one-hit wonder or a fluke. So I tried it again and again, and it just landed up. It produced the most unbelievable results. It became the favorite day of my week. Not not only was I crushing Mondays to make sure that it was a almost like you could reduce the noise on a Tuesday, but this was like I really look forward to this day. I get up so early in the morning on a Tuesday because I want to maximize this. And now, since releasing it into the wild, like on Tuesday, I even start getting messages from people. I know it's Tuesday, so you can respond to me whenever it suits you. And and the most amazing thing is there's no balls that are dropped. So most
Mm.
control freaks were saying, but if I'm not there, it's not going to happen. Something's
Mm.
going to break. What happens if there's an urgency? Well, if it's an urgency, someone will get hold of you. You're not bunkering down for the day. You're not
Mm.
disappearing. You're not hopping off the grid. You're just doing things at the beat to your own drum, and you're choosing to do things that will really be good for your mind, body, and soul. And and that's, I know from someone like me, if I'm caught up in the kitchen for too long, it shuts down my ability to bring the very things that my team rely on me for.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I need to be creative. I need to come up with new ideas. I need to get inspired. I need to be the visionary. I need to do all of that. But if I'm exposed to being in the day to day, the mundaneness, the pressure cooker of the usual Monday to Fridays, they basically getting a depleted product.
Yeah.
They're getting my C game. They're not getting the A game.
Yeah.
And
Finish your
so
thought. Go ahead.
so basically, I'm there on Monday and I'm crushing it. Tuesday, I'm still getting to everything, but I'm adding so much, and it's come back to to an earlier question, is when you feel energized by doing things that bring you joy and the things that you feel like you haven't got a chance to get to, but now you're getting to it, it adds so much more fulfillment, meaning, and energy to you. It literally fills up your batteries, and when you're resonating at that level of energy, so when you have that heart and brain coherence, just
Mm,
good things come your way, and
mm,
so you start seeing the beauty in things. It's like that feeling of literally, if you wanted to be literal about it, it's like that sense of you being in your house without a generator or an inverter, and suddenly you switch to solar, and and you let go of all that PTSD of when the next load shed is coming, and now
yes.
suddenly you feel the world is different,
Yeah.
and
You're free. Yeah.
it's the exact same feeling in your psyche.
Yeah. So many things that you mentioned there now that I wanted to touch on. One being the fact that you're almost microdosing yourself with December. And if you think about the number of weeks that there are in the year, let's just loosely say 52 weeks, so 52 Tuesdays, you've got yourself longer than a December holiday if you were to microdose each Tuesday and make a
Yeah.
Tuesday of it. And listening to you, it really does come down to, as I was saying, someone else has given me the permission, but I'm still struggling with that. If we were to reframe what our boundaries are and what we're prepared to let in on any given day, we do have a little bit more, I mean, control freak abilities
Or
over that day.
agency.
But
Yeah.
agency is a nice way to frame it. Yes, giving yourself the agency to do that. You're also not saying, go and lie on the beach and just read a book or go for a massage every single Tuesday. You're still being productive in your business, but it's the way that that information is being filtered through you, as opposed to demanding your time. You're giving it to the things that give you the energy to keep on going. And I'm sure was there some form of method for you to come up with how you would then approach Tuesday? Is it literally the day on your calendar? If I were to look at your next week Tuesday, is it just an empty day and you start your day by going, what should I do today?
Yeah. So it started off with the two main ingredients. So the the thing around cementing something into your psyche is around consistency. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is, I would say, persistence and consistency. And so I knew, as I did it a few times, that this is something. I decided, well, what I have to do is, the biggest challenge is to do it every week, no matter what. Obviously, I don't know what's coming next week. If there's a calamity, obviously I'll deal with the calamity. Well, guess what? It's been 6 months and there hasn't been one that I haven't been able to deal with. And two is, it's such a strong boundary and willpower exercise, because every day I'm being pinged. Can we meet? Can we talk? Can we do this? And really, this is the one day in the week I can be super discerning, and so much so it's got to the stage where, when I accept something or I choose something on a Tuesday, and I tell people about it, they are so honored. Like this Tuesday, I had a friend that came from Cape Town. We haven't seen each other in a long time. He's another entrepreneur, and we, he bought me a book. Then we went for a run. So he bought me the gift, and he proceeded to so generously summarize the book on our run. And we had this long, deep conversation. Then still had breakfast. Now, when do you have this in your normal waking day where you can spend such quality time? But it was literally like going to somewhere between a singularity and a TED conference in that
Right.
morning,
Yeah.
and I got exercise, and I got connection, and clarity on some business issues, and it was just by giving myself the permission. I mean, if you think about it, like, you run a business, you're kind of, you by nature, you should have that freedom, but over time that freedom gets somehow, it's kind of put away, and over time you can feel a prisoner in your own prison cell, like you created the prison.
Yeah.
And so no one's waking up saying to the leader, what are you doing to be happy? They assume you know what to do and you're doing it, and they're relying on you to help them. And so this is a way to actually put yourself first, so that you can fill your cup up, so that you can go back out into the world and serve. And they talk about servant leadership, being there for others.
Yeah.
And what I've realized out of this Chooseday experiment is the darker side of servant leadership is you deplete yourself down to your DNA, where there's nothing left. And when there's nothing left, what creeps in is self-loathing, resentment. So when you've broken so many boundaries, you resent the very people that are knocking on your door for your time. You are not a nice person. You're grumpy to be around, and you kind of a self-loathing shadow of the leader that you sought out to be in January. So, the usual diet is a road to depletion, and Tuesday for me is an antidote to freedom.
Beautiful. So well said. Thank you, Ronen. Thank you so much for your time. This has been such a cool conversation. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Some Assembly Required. Ronen lives in Johannesburg and shares his home with his wife, Kim, and their 3 dogs. He says his children are in and out of the house too. Ronen says his best mistake was probably taking a corporate job, and one of the biggest life lessons he's learned is how we often try things to see what we like, but invariably what teaches us most are the things we don't like. And unless you go through with an experience, you are simply a philosopher, because you don't really know what you do want or what you don't want. So as we embrace the idea of Chooseday, that's CHOOSE, Ronen poses this question: when did self-sacrifice become your strategy? The day you decided it would. And when will it end? The day you decide it does. Choose wisely, my friends. Thanks again for listening to this episode. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the follow button inside the app you're currently listening on and share it with your podcast listening friends. Links to the things we mentioned in this episode, including Using Light for Health by Dr. Andrew Huberman, the Chooseday Experiment, and the Some Assembly Required YouTube channel are all in the show notes. You'll also find links to our Instagram account and the free newsletter, Unstuck, packed with inspiration and motivation to get things grooving. Join the tribe. My name is Sean Lewitz, and this is Some Assembly Required. See you soon.